All right, so there's three things to pull out of this lesson. The first is how to create a melody so that what you play doesn't just sound like you're playing a scale. It sounds like you're singing something with your fingers. So that's the first thing. We're also going to talk about visualizing chord tones. I always touch on this, and it's so important if you want to play chord changes. And it's a fairly easy thing to do. It's actually easier to me than even playing through a scale because you're just seeing the chords and you're touching some of the notes in those chords. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing is alternate picking, where you down and up strokes with the right hand. This is a great exercise for those of you that are trying to get faster when you're playing. It sounds so much better to play something like this, especially over a jam track that holds you to a tempo, than just sitting down and going through a scale or something boring. So it's more of an incentive, I guess, to be a faster player. So those are the three things we're going to touch on. Now, before I jump into the lesson, I want to mention the guitar. Last week I talked about giving away a guitar, and I've never done a giveaway. And actually I learned a lot. I ended up, the website crashed. We had so many people submitting comments. I just was not anticipating that. I thought maybe 300-400 at the most. We ended up with 4,410, exactly that. Now I went through and I pulled everything together into one database. We actually had two, so some people submitted on the original form, and then I had to redo the website to make up for that. So I had two databases that I pulled together into one. I scrubbed through to make sure there were no duplicates, ended up with 4,410, and the winner was someone named Andre, and I've actually contacted Andre this morning. He lives here in the U.S. in, I think, Pennsylvania, but anyway, I don't want to mention his last name, but Andre, congratulations. We have been in contact. He was really excited about it. And so I'll be sending that out, or I'll wrap it up this weekend and get it out in the mail on Monday. So I'm excited for you. I think you're going to love the guitar. And I will do more like this. I know I said that last week. And as I went through it this week, I thought, I'm never going to do this again because it was such a hassle. But I learned a lot. I learned how to do it. And I think it'll be easier next time, hopefully. So anyway, you'll have to stay in touch, and I'll announce another one at some point. All right, let's talk about this song. So this is kind of a gypsy jazz kind of vibe. It's very cool. The chord structure is really it's like a 1-5. So you go from the 1 chord to the 5 chord. But instead of playing the chord straight like that, when you get into the gypsy jazz thing, the chords move a little more. There's more of like passing chords. So you get this, that kind of thing. It's just, it spices it up a little bit. I have a breakdown of that, as I mentioned, for all you premium members. So there's a tab and a video that goes with that. So if you want to learn how to play that, you can do that. But for the most part, when you're improvising over this, I want you to just think about the fact that you're playing over the 1 and the 5. That's really what you got to think about when you think about visualizing things. That's how I do it anyway. Those other chords are going by too quick. You don't have time. So that's the first thing we're going to play. And the way that I started this was I was visualizing this chord, this triad right here, which is your A triad. And if you can picture that, with your mind, then you have the notes that you can touch on that are going to absolutely work, and they're going to sound great. So when I played those, you can see where they're coming from now. I was not even thinking scale at that point. I was just thinking chord. And I could have even harmonized. So I could have played strings 1 and 2 at the same time, and then 2 and 3. So when you start thinking about these triads, you've got like these little harmonies within them, harmonized thirds like that. You've got harmonized sixth. You've got the single notes. All of this stuff happens out of those 3 notes. So there's a lot of power in that. The next thing I play goes like this. So this is just the major scale. It's the A major scale. And one thing I want to mention, if you're not familiar with how to play the major scale, you have to check out EP374, because I go through the major scale in 5 positions. And it's actually connected to the 5 positions of the caged system. Once I realized this, it unlocked everything for me. So when I'm playing this A shape, even though we were just playing the triad, I'm thinking about the E shape. out of cage. So that triad comes from that. It's the top part of that. So I've got my major scale in 2 octaves connected to that shape. So once you go through that EP374, and I did that in the key of G, but the same principles apply, then you're able to really see these major scales in these different spots. So go through that if you haven't, and maybe you already know that, but anyway, wanted to plug that. Okay, so this is a 7th fret 3rd string. We go 7, 6, back to 7, and then walk it down, 6, 4, and then go down to the 7th fret 4th string, and then slide up to the 6th fret 4th string. And when I do that, then I put my index finger down on the 5th fret 2nd string. So all together, I love this because this is where the song switches to the E chord. Remember, it starts on the A chord and then it goes to the E chord. And you can see that that is just 2 notes that are in your E7 chord, or it's 2 notes in your E chord like this using the C shape out of Caged. However you want to look at it, it's the same 2 notes. So in my mind, when I play this, I'm playing an E chord. And that's how you need to start thinking about the neck. If I were to say to most of you play an E chord, most of us would do this, right? But within that, you have these 2 notes. Same 2 notes are here, right? So those 2 notes are enough to spell out the E chord. And it gives you just another way of thinking about that chord. So when I played the lead, it was real easy to walk into that chord. And actually, it's not really the chord, it's really more of a harmonized 6th. But it sounds like an E chord, and it works in great with the melody. Okay, so the song repeats now. We go back to the A chord, and I went. So we're going to learn that. And what this is, again, these are just notes out of the major scale. All covered in that EP374. Major scale connected to the E shape. But when I played it, I went. Okay, so that's a little walk up. 5, 7 on the 2nd string, up to the 4th fret 1st string. And then this was just me playing harmonized thirds in my mind. I was picturing that. It's just if you look at harmonized thirds that way, instead of playing them together, you can pick the notes out of them. And work that into your lead. It sounds very thought out, but in actual fact, I was just playing those harmonized thirds. So that's just your top part of your triad. 1 and 2, strings 1 and 2 on the 5th fret. And then there's the 4th fret 1st string, 5th fret 2nd string, and that's in that harmonized third that I talked about. There's one down here, so that's the 7th fret, strings 2 and 3. And then that last note is here on the 5th fret 2nd string. So all together, really cool sound. And then watch this. Now that sounds complicated maybe, but watch how simple this is. Remember, that's where the song goes back to the E chord. We're just going between 2 chords, an A and an E. When I came up here, notice everything I was doing was really between the 7th fret and the 9th fret. Let's look at the E chord shape. If I were to superimpose it mentally or visually in my mind, I can see the E shape right there the E chord using the A shape. And then you have the top part of that A shape, which looks like that little triad. And so when I went, you can see where that's coming from. It's really all coming from that triad. The one thing I want to mention about this area, and actually this works anywhere when you're playing lead, when you've got 2 notes and there's a fret in between them, you can play that fret in between them if you use it sparingly. It's called playing chromatically. So when you play, you can do that in between each of those. Even though those notes aren't really in that scale or in the chord, you can use them as passing tones. You just don't want to overdo that. You don't want to do it all the time because then it becomes obnoxious. So when I went, that's where that came from. started with my ring finger, 7th fret, 2nd string. I slide from the 8th up to the 9th fret on the 2nd string. 7th fret, 1st string. And then we go 9, 7 on the 2nd. So, and then watch this, 9, 8, 7. There it is, walking down to this note. What is this note? Why does it sound so good? That would be your 7. If you're looking at an E7 chord, that would be the 7, right? However you look at the chord. It's that same note though, but when you land on that note, it gives it that little bit of bluesy flavor. Just by touching on that note. That's why these chord tones are so important to visualize, because you can pull this thing in whatever direction you want. All right, so now in this song, the chord format changes a little bit. So now it goes from the A chord to the D chord, the D7. And then it goes from the B, same thing, to the E, E7. So, and that's just a common chord progression. And then you're at the 5, which gets you back to the 1. And what I played over that A to the D7, sounds like that. This is the A part. So we're gonna go, I'm picturing that triad again. Sliding up to that 6th fret, 3rd string, 5, 7 on the 2nd string, and then the 5th fret, 1st string. You can see that triad right in the middle of that. And then I came up to this note. Now that's not in the E major scale. It's not in the chords. It's not a 7. It's in the minor pentatonic scale for A. So I like to just remember that. I always keep that minor pentatonic scale in there, and I can work in any of those notes if I want to blues it up. Just throwing in that, it just sounds so bluesy. So it's 8, 7, 5 on the 1st string, and then the 7th fret, 2nd string. And then while I hit that 7th fret, 2nd string, I barred so that I can go to the 1st string, and then back to the 5th fret, 1st string. And you can see this is major pentatonic scale pattern 2 right here. That's what I'm picturing there. So that's what I played over the A, and then I walked it up to the D chord. So I'm thinking of the top part of the A shape, just like we played a minute ago up here for the E. Same shape, I'm picturing it here now. So you can see why those notes are working. 5, 6, 7 on the 2nd string, 5, 7 on the 1st string, and then I slide up here to the 8th fret, 1st string, back to the 7th fret, back to the 5th fret. Why did this note work? Well, for one, it's in the A minor pentatonic scale, which would work for the key, but it's also in a D7 chord. That's the 7 in the chord. So, and then we come down, we land on the 7th fret, 2nd string, and then I went and just went into it twice there, and then 7th fret, 3rd string. Why are these notes? Because they're in that triad, right? You can see the triad there, and you can see why all of that works. So from that A, we have rest, all right, now this is where the song switches to the B, right? Now that's a lot of stuff, but it's really just, I'm picturing that B chord. So I'm sliding into the 3rd of the chord, which is right here. So there's the B triad, right? Same triad like the A, but we just go up 2 frets. I slid up to the 8th fret, 3rd string, 7th fret, 2nd string, and then the 10th fret, 2nd string. That note would be in the minor pentatonic scale for B. Then this note, which would be the 9th fret, 1st string. And this is where I'm blending the minor pentatonic and the major. That's how I think of it anyway. So that's 7th fret, 1st string, back to the 10th fret, 2nd string. So all together. And then watch this. We're going to go from the 10th fret second string down to the 8 and 7. So, and then we have this. So this is just playing around this B7 shape. And we come up to the 10th fret first string, 10, 9, 7. 10th fret second string. And then once I'm here, I go with my middle finger to the 9th fret first string, and then repeat the same pattern from this point. 9, 7, 10 on the second string, down to the 9th fret second string. So we have... And then after this 10th fret second string, I come to the 7th fret second string. So all together, that's the hardest part of the whole thing. That's an awesome exercise for alternate picking with the right hand because it's just down, up, and it's got a little bit of a swagger to it. And then I went like this. Now this is where the song goes to the E chord. So let's picture that E chord there using the A shape. Right? You can see why it's working. Those are my frets I have to work with. So we slide up to the 9th fret second string, and then we go 9, 8, 7 on the 3rd string. And then watch this. Really cool, little quirky kind of Django Reinhardt thing. That's, again, it's taking advantage of those frets in between the 7th fret and the 9th fret. So it's 7, 8, 9 on the second string. And then I hit the 9th fret first string. Okay, so all together from that B chord. And then the song stops right there and we go into another round of it, but I switch it and play it in a higher octave, and there's another whole part, but I'm going to save that for the part 2 video. I think that's a lot to try and tackle in this one. Just remember to find those chord tones and blend those in with the major scale. That's the magic of the whole thing, is being able to see both. Now, I will say this, when I improvised this part, I had to do it many times. When I first did it, it sounded terrible. I had to kind of get familiar with it. So I don't want you to think that this is something you just pick up a guitar and you can just do right away. At least I can't. I know there are people that can, but to come up with a melody like that, I had to kind of massage it several times, go through it, and then kind of settle on something that I thought sounded good. So you can keep that in mind. Don't beat yourself up if this is too complicated. And if you're a premium member, you have access to the slower version. I have a slower version of the jam track, so you can start off slowly and work your way up. All right, if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, make sure you do that. We can stay in touch, and you can be notified when I put out new stuff. All right, we'll see you in the part 2 video.